USD 305 board meeting. Today is February 26, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Hardy, are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Madam President, there are no additions or corrections to the agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a motion? Gary?
Madam President, I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Jim?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried 7-0. Next on our agenda is recognition and presentations with Jennifer Bradford Vernon. And first is the Horizon Awards recognition.
Salina USD 305 presents the Horizon Awards to teachers who have demonstrated excellence during their first full year of teaching. We are proud to announce this year's Horizon Award recipients, Brooke Hawkins, third grade teacher at Huesner Elementary School, and Michael Billinger, computer studies teacher at Lakewood Middle School. Michael Billinger is in his second year as computer studies teacher at Lakewood, having served previously as a coach and a paraeducator for USD 305. He has been key to helping establish Google Classroom and leading character building lessons during advisory class at Lakewood. His honesty, dependability, and work ethic complement his kind heart and open ear when it comes to his students and coworkers. I now invite Michael to the podium.
I don't think I can top that. 3 years ago, if you'd have told me I was going to be a teacher, I probably wouldn't have had a very school-appropriate response. I was living a lifelong dream of mine of being a college baseball coach, and I was loving it. Sadly, about 3 years ago in the summer, Brown Mackie College closed, and I was no longer a baseball coach there. Had no backup plan. I had just finished my bachelor's degree and had no idea what I was going to do. About fall of that year, I found out about the transition to teaching program through Fort Hays, and it was too late in the semester to get a teaching job, but I got a job as a coach at Lakewood, and I was a para at South High School. I knew eventually I was going to be a teacher from that point, so I took that opportunity and I ran with it as being a para. I did not have student teaching or classes to learn how to be a teacher, but I got to go into classrooms every day with students and learn what other teachers did. Some of those teachers, they really made a great impact on me on what I could do as a teacher. I'd like to talk about just a couple of those real quick just because of how much of an impact they made on me. When I was at South High School, Mr. Luthai was a great influence on me. I was in his room. He taught me a lot about how to teach students with learning disabilities, the way he handled students, the way he treated them. It was flat out amazing for me. Mrs. Kane and Mrs. Donnelly, they taught me that it's okay to not know what you're doing at times, but it's not okay not to ask for help. And my English teacher would be really upset with my grammar on that, so I do apologize. But Mrs. Nutter, she taught me how to be firm and how to be set in stone and not waver so that students wouldn't walk all over me, because she said they were going to do that a lot if I didn't. At semester, I got transferred from South High to South Middle School, where I got to work with a lot of great teachers there that also had a great influence on me. Mrs. Lumley, she taught me something about how to motivate students. One of the things she did that really hit me was, hey, if you do your assignment, you can go run an errand for me. And I'm like, so you're having a kid do work for you in class, and then you're going to have them do work for you that you don't have to do, and it motivates students. Something I would have never thought of, and it worked. I was in Mrs. Welsh's class. She was teaching English at the time. I know she got transferred. The way she cared for her students, I've never seen something like that. Just what she did, how well she did it. Every student was like it was her own kid, and it floored me. Mr. Allen, I learned some great classroom management ideas from him. Some things I just was like, man, when I'm a teacher, I have to do some of these things that he does. It was just great. Mrs. Ladenberger and Mrs. Barber taught me small forms of encouragement can really motivate students. and also that my attitude affects how they are as teachers, or how they are as students. So if I come in with a bad attitude, they're not going to work for you, and I learned that as a parent. While I didn't have the chance to be a student teacher or go through the schooling, I used this opportunity because of the great people that you guys helped put in place for me, and it's one of the things that helped me a lot becoming a teacher. Last thing I want to say, probably the worst thing I can say, I hated school growing up. In middle school, it was the worst 3 years of my life. I went every day because I had an after-school teacher who stayed with us after day, and he helped me make sure I passed. And I had a PE teacher that I could laugh with and joke and go to track, and he helped me pass. From high school, that was Mr. Jerry Brown and John Charles. I got to get their names out because they did so much for me. At the high school, I had Jeannie Michaelis at Hayes High and Lisa Renz. I still see them now. They came to my wedding. It's teachers like that that make me want to be a teacher. It's teachers like that that make me say, you know what, I've got to be there for my kids every day. I've got to be not just a teacher, but a good person to them. All the people that I was able to be a para under taught me a lot, and without them, without the teachers I had, I don't think I'd be where I am. Last person I got to give a shout out to, Mrs. Hutton, my mentor teacher. I never felt like I was a new teacher talking with her. She just, every day we had talks, we helped each other. Everything she taught me was just great. But once again, I wouldn't be with her. And one more thing I got to say is, I got to thank my administration. Worst day I ever had as a teacher was the day that Miss Welty over there came in to observe me on my first time. I'm gonna make a long story short, but when we had our conference, she goes, so how do you think that went? And I said, well, I texted my wife right after class and said, we need to bring boxes up here. I don't think it went well. You know, it's been great getting to do this. I thank you guys for this opportunity. I feel like I don't deserve this award because of all the people that have helped me along this way that you guys have helped put in place for that. So thank you very much for this time.
Thank you, Michael. Brooke Hawkins is our elementary Horizon teacher, and she is into her second year as a third grade teacher at Hughesner, where she serves on the school improvement team and has helped with teacher recruitment at the district level. Building relationships with her students comes naturally for Brooke, but she also has the ability to do this as a part of setting high standards. She provides her students with scaffolding and support. This combination sets her apart. Now I would like to invite Brooke to the podium.
I just first want to say thank you for this amazing, thank you so much for this recognition. It just means so much to me. First, I would have to say I would not have received this award without my amazing administration at school. Thank you to Lori Munsell, who always makes you feel like you did your best job that day, and she's just very encouraging and loving. My wonderful coaches, who, although I do ask 10 million questions a day, that they always answer them for me, and sometimes they don't give me the answers and they make me work for it. I was asked what made my first year so successful, and just thinking back on it, if I were a student in my class, I would want to make sure that I come to school every day knowing that I am loved and cared for, and that I have someone who is going to help me be my best. And that's one of the things that we did in my classroom and that we always do, is that we build community. We make sure that you know that you are loved in our classroom and that you are special, and that if you are having a rough day, that you have a group of friends who are going to help you out. Also, I am overly prepared all the time about everything, and so I think that may have been another reason why my first year went very well, because there's always a plan A, B, C, and D to everything that we do, because we know in third grade things do not go as expected, and there will be days when, you know, we are frantic and we have to come back together and figure things out. So yeah, that's all. Thank you so much for this award.
And now I'd like to invite Brooke and Michael back to the front to join Dr. Hardy. In recognition of the awards, Brooke and Michael's pictures have been placed alongside other USD 305 Horizon awardees. We have engraved plaques and apple pins for them as well. Congratulations. Would you please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you now?
So good to have you aboard.
I have to make that transition. Thank you.
Last fall, members of NEA Salina selected Carolyn Phelan as the district's master teacher. Today, we learned that Carolyn also was selected to be one of 7 recipients from across Kansas to receive an Emporia State University Kansas Master Teacher Award. Carolyn has taught for 15 years at Salina USD 305, including Oakdale Elementary and currently at Gracie Stewart as first grade teacher. A natural leader, Carolyn has served at the Elementary Curriculum Academy, Math Horizontal Alignment Committee, NEA Negotiations Team, and much more. I now invite Carolyn to share some thoughts with you.
I speak in front of little people all day, not big people, so I wrote mine down because I will not remember. I was at first shocked and then overwhelmed to be named this year's NEA Salina Master Teacher. I have a feeling the Horizon teachers being honored tonight would agree with me when I say that what happens in our classrooms each day doesn't seem outstanding or remarkable to us. We care deeply for our students and will do whatever it takes because we want them, the best for them, not only academically, but also within their emotional and social development. It's just what we do in the classroom each day. This district has many amazing teachers who give their all throughout each and every day, evening, and sometimes weekends. I would love to share this honor with each and every one of them because they deserve it just as much. One of my favorite quotes is from Rita F. Pearson, who said, "Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best they can possibly be." I and many others strive to be that person for each of our students during the time they're in our classrooms and beyond. I would like to take just a moment to thank Dr. Hardy and the Board of Education for their vested interest in achieving the very best for our students in Salina Public Schools. We as teachers can do so many positive things for our students, but we can't do it alone. So thank you again for your partnership and support.
Carolyn, we extend to you our congratulations as the Salina Master Teacher of the Year. Your picture has been placed in this boardroom alongside other outstanding educators, and we present to you a marble apple as a memento of this honor.
I always like the beginning of our meetings, we're either honoring students or honoring teachers or honoring people that are so giving to the school board and to the school buildings. It's very moving many times. Next on our agenda is approval of consent agenda items. We have minutes of the February 12th, 2019 regular meeting, personnel report, treasurer's report, investment report, journal entries, approve encumbrance listings to Mastery Connect in the amount of $50,500 for student licenses and web professional development, to Johnson Controls in the amount of $229,818.32 for electronic entry controls at Oakdale, Sunset, Schilling, and Meadowlark elementary schools. Would you all stand if you're from those schools? I saw some of you out there. Okay, thank you. To Dell in the amount of $42,677.30, and to CDW-G in the amount of $4,780 for the purchase of computers and monitors to be used for educational services provided by the Smoky Hill Education Service Center at St. Francis Academy. Approve Central High fundraising activity. Approve South High fundraising activity. Approve Oakdale 21st Century Grant intent to apply for a 5-year grant with annual fundings contingent upon meeting program goals. The total grant request for this period is $360,000. Approve Early Head Start Child Care Partnership Grant application for renewed funding in the amount of $576,000. No matches required. Approve Kansas Early Head Start Home Visitation Grant application for renewed funding in the amount of $242,000. No matches required. Approve Kansas Parents as Teachers Program continuation grant application for level funding of $80,583. Includes a cash match of $51,534 for a total budget of $132,117. Approve state pre-K 4-year-old at-risk continuation grant and Kansas preschool pilot KPP grant applications. Funding for the state pre-K grant is 0.5 FTE base state aid per pupil qualifying student. Funding for the preschool pilot grant is $195,000. Yes,
Madam President, I move approval of the consent agenda items as reported.
thank you. Second, Jim. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried 7-0. Next on our agenda is public forum. At this time, anyone in the audience that would like to come forward may do so. Not seeing anyone, we'll move to action agenda, which is the 2019-2020 textbook rental fees with Dr. James Hardy.
Madam President, this is that time of the year where even though we're only in February, we're actually getting ready for the next school year. Part of that is setting our textbook rental fees. We are keeping them at the same level they were this current year for next year. You might even note that if students or parents enroll online during designated online enrollment periods, they actually get a discount for their student fees. And that's part of our effort to get more people to enroll online and pay online. It's really benefited the district and helped parents out as well. So with all that information, it's recommended that you approve the textbook rental fees for the 2019-2020 school year as presented.
Thank you.
Madam
Is there a
President,
motion?
I move that we approve the textbook rental fees for the 2019-2020 school year as presented.
Thank you, Ann.
Emma Doherty,
Second.
second.
Emma, second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried 7-0. Next on our agenda is board policy with Aaron Wright. Aaron?
Good evening. We're here again tonight to, sorry, my computer skills are lacking. We're here tonight for the second reading of recommended changes to board policies. The last board meeting, February 12th, we worked through the recommended changes. We had several additions to that evening, which we have provided for you here. Based on that discussion, you will notice the highlighted portions are changes to the policy, and the red portion are the amendments we made at that February 12th meeting. The first several policies, the school census, the special meetings, the defined contribution plan, the public records, and emergency drill policies were unchanged from the February 12th meeting. I do want to draw your attention to GAAP. We changed the language of that policy to be more in line with its sister version contained also in this document, JAAC, if I can get there. This mouse is slower. In that, here we go, the sexual harassment policy, you'll see here that what we did based on that discussion that evening was combine the two policies so the language was more consistent between the two policies. And that's what you have here, was those changes. Any questions on the sexual harassment policy? Okay. Again, GAACA, we also changed because it also has a sister policy in Section J of the policies and procedures. Again, we placed them together, combined the language so they would comport with each other more closely. Any questions on that? Okay. The emergency safety intervention statute remained. We did add the not, the very important not that was left out of physical restraint from the previous version. Any questions there? Okay. The ESI section did not have any changes from the last meeting, I don't believe. Yes. This position, GACA, remains unchanged from the last meeting. Interrogation and investigations, we clarified the during school hours to change the grammar of that structure of that sentence since the last meeting. Any question on that policy? Then again, we have the J version of the sexual harassment and the racial and disability harassment policies, both changed in exactly the same way as the other in G section. This mouse is slow, sorry folks. Student accidents, we reworked quite a bit based on the discussions from that evening. It's now been divided into two sections, one that generally states what happens in non-emergency accident situations with students, and one clarifying what the protocol will be for emergency accidents and care during those situations. It's important to note that staff, employees of the district, if they believe they require emergency medical treatment, we simply call 911. And then for those who are certified to be able to provide first aid, may apply first aid during the time until the ambulance arrives. In all cases, regardless of whether it's emergent or not, parents will be notified of the injury as soon as possible. Any questions on that front? Okay, those are the only changes that were made differently from what you saw on February 12th.
And we would like to recommend that you approve these amendments to the policies at this time.
Are there any questions or comments?
No, I just wanted to say that I appreciate the opportunity that we had for the work session so that we did clear up quite a few things, and that's always a good exercise, so thank you.
Agreed. The more eyes, the better in this situation.
Isn't that true?
Any other comments?
I would
Gary?
comment that some eyes are better than others, and we all should thank Carol.
For sure.
Right.
Year after year, she catches things
Yep.
that the rest of us miss. They could come from KASB with all their attorneys and all their administrators, and they still leak some issues through on if it means what it's supposed to mean, and Carol catches them. She's just marvelous.
True.
You just need an old English teacher.
I was going to say, we all learned that not
all
is
do,
very
right.
important.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah, not is
Thank
very
you,
important
Carol.
word. Jim?
Madam President, I move that we approve the board policies as presented.
Second.
Inventory
Emma?
second.
No questions, no comments? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried, 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
for all that work.
Yes.
We'll move on to our discussion agenda. First thing is the high school pilot schedule update with Curtis Stevens and Nate Showman, both of our high school principals. Good to have you here tonight.
Madam President, these our documents are on your desktop.
Okay?
All right. We didn't really go out with the graphics on this, so I hope that what we've got will work. But last year we came in front of the board and talked a little bit about changing the high school schedule. And at that time, there were a lot of unknowns, and we've worked through those and figured those out for as much as we can. And so tonight, we just wanted to give you a little bit of feedback on how the pilot is going 1 year out. So, take this off. Just to give you a little bit of the schedule's history, both high schools have utilized the block schedule since the late 1990s. High school teachers used to teach 5 blocks out of 7. But starting in 2016, 2017, and again in 2017, 2018, teachers taught 6 blocks, but we only had 7 classes offered due to a change in the negotiated agreement. The high schools have piloted this 8 blocks schedule for basically with ELO starting in August of this year through 2018, and teachers are still only instructing 6 blocks. But then they have that ELO daily at the end of the day for about 45 minutes.
Curtis, could I interrupt here just a
ahead.
second? Just for the audience,
Uh-huh.
could you define ELO?
Yeah. Contrary to popular belief, it's not just a band from the 70s, but ELO is also extended learning opportunity. We always get asked that by parents. Are like, what is this?
Okay.
What's this ELO thing? So sorry about that institutional jargon. So extended learning opportunity is like an advisory at the end of the day. And we've had it in different time periods throughout the school day in the past. We've had it toward the beginning of the day, and we've had it every other day. Now we offer it every single day. So a student will go into an advisory with their what we call homeroom teacher. And during that time, some of the days of the week they're able to pass to go see other teachers. But on Wednesdays, for example, at South High, they don't. They work on their career cruising and their kind of programming for determining their individual plan of study. So that's what that is. Thank you for stopping to make sure I clear that up. Our teachers have 80 minutes of planning period each day that is used for both personal plan and teacher collaboration. So that kind of gives you an overview, a little bit of the history of where we've been. This will be, in the last 3 years, we've had basically 2 different schedules, and before that, again, 3. So Mr. Showman and I are learning how to retool the master schedule as we go, and we're getting fairly good at it, but also balancing the schedule with this 8 blocks has been very helpful. So I'm going to let him kind of weigh in a little bit on the executive summary of how it's been going.
So by adding this extra course, some of the added benefits is that when we completed our bond project, we were able to bring on new CTE programs. So by adding an 8th class, students now have an extra elective opportunity built into their schedule. So instead of having to make a decision, do I take orchestra or do I take my 4th year of a language, now they can take both. And they also, in the past, in order to accommodate this type of scheduling, they would have had to either take a summer school course in order to fit something in. Now they have an opportunity in order to do that. Talking to our site councils and talking to students, the ELO at the end of the day, it does provide a home base of sorts for our students. It gives them a consistent peer group that they get to meet with every single day, and a consistent adult advocate in the building that they have contact with every single day. And like what Mr. Stevens mentioned, we do our individual plan of study during this time. Counselors come in and do presentations during this time. We'll bring in guest speakers. It's a club opportunity, but it's just a fantastic pocket of time that we can use for a variety of reasons, but ultimately it builds community within the school and provides a layer of support for students so that they can get some work done if they need to prior to leaving for the end of the day. And when we go into, for example, spring sports season, now they're not missing large chunks of instructional time at the end of the day when they're traveling to their events. Now with the final class ending at 1:45, now they're just missing a little bit of class time. They're missing ELO. So number of student advantages, number of teacher advantages. We've reinstituted common plan times for our teachers. So with PLCs being a focus, professional learning communities, and the need and the desire to have a more collaborative environment, with this common plan time, we're now able to get all our English teachers have a time during the day where they are able to meet together and plan and grade and look at data. All of our math teachers, all of our elective teachers, in most cases, we're able to do that with the electives. So this provides a better environment, I think, building-wide for both teachers and students by going through and having a more balanced class schedule with the 4 classes each day, and then the ELO or the seminar period at the end of the day. We can better support everything. Both schools went through and asked the question, do you favor keeping the current pilot schedule? So Central, we had 65 responses. That broke down to 78% of the staff was in favor, 21% said no, which was a 51 to 14 split. And going through and kind of drilling down on some of the no's, what the feedback that I received was a desire, and I think there are things that we can work through. Working through what does that all-day schedule look like and some of the logistics there. Some of our procedural things with ELO in terms of when we do a movement day or a non-movement day, so when we allow students to pass. The comment also was posed to me in terms of the desire to go back to a 5 to 7 schedule led to teachers saying no. But ultimately, my staff is in favor, overwhelming favor of the 8 blocks.
South High also conducted a survey, and we had 59 responses. This was conducted on January 24th in the morning at a faculty meeting, and basically we ended up with 2 individuals who said no. And when I drilled down on those, that was pretty consistent with what we had last year. There were 2 individuals, I believe, in last year's response that had said no. From what I received on feedback, those were also instructors who favored the studio classes to where they were able to have more minutes in the instruction. When we looked at, you'll recall our former schedule was 93 minutes, and we dropped that down to 80. I know there was concerns about lost instruction time. In talking with a lot of the teachers, they felt that time had been recaptured with another class, and it really dropped the number of minutes per instruction from the independent study portion or the independent work time of students, but we also rechanneled that back into our student seminars in ELO. So that because they're meeting every single day during ELO, they are also able to go and get assistance and support from those teachers during that time. So I know we were worried about lost instruction time, but with a 93-minute block, you obviously aren't going to deliver curriculum the same way for 93 minutes during that. You're going to compartmentalize and break it up into smaller portions. And the portion we pulled away was more from the independent work time to be refocused into ELO. So short of those 2 individuals, it was very well overwhelmingly supported at South High. Overall, what I would say, probably the biggest thing I have witnessed since we've adopted this schedule, our individual plans of study actually have a workable plan to where we have that student seminar time, or ELO, or homeroom, whatever you want to call it, down to a size that is manageable. Instead of it being, you would call under the 6 of 7 schedule, we had to basically take half of the teachers and put them on plan on gold days, or the even days. And then that increased the size of the ELOs to almost 36 in some cases, which, if you're building relationships, if you're trying to do the individual plans of study, if you're also trying to help students get support for academic areas, they can't go see half the teachers at that time. So it really was not an ideal way of doing it. We tried to do the best we could to give teachers plan and honor the 6 of 7 schedule, but with the 8 blocks, as Mr. Showman has indicated, it has made it schedule much more in a much more balanced fashion. There was a question at one point in time asked about, well, why is it that we don't have all days and go back to that schedule? And since we've adopted programs that both high schools share, we really are committed to that longer block period to allow travel time. We do all days right now. They're not popular, and the only time we do them is after a snow day. And so our students, we've had a couple of snow days this year, and they're like, we don't like the all days, Mr. Stevens. And I'm like, well, we can't have a snow day then. And they're like, well, we think that. But overall, I think where we end up with it is that there's a couple of adjustments, as Mr. Showman made, or alluded to, that we can make that will help us get around some of that. We have really looked at the minutes for gold and green days, or I'm sorry, white and maroon days at Central, even and odd. And we are watching that, and so we've had a couple of all days where we've put in there to help balance the amount of minutes. But what we're really hearing from our teachers and students is that at the beginning of the semester, rather than have that all day where they run through all their classes, it really doesn't help them get used to the schedule because they're so rare. So we're going to probably back off of those. We will still continue to do the all days after a snow day because of the balance of minutes, and it allows them to see it. And on those days, we don't have ELO. Overwhelmingly, we're seeing success with it. I know just with the relationships, we're starting to kind of try to loop our ELOs or our advisories. So in other words, students follow that same teacher throughout their high school career, and they build a better relationship. We've had a lot of success with that, and we're hopeful that we can continue doing that.
I'll disclose just one of the comments that kind of sticks with me when we were talking about this in the site council. What are some of the positive impacts that you're seeing or hearing from your student about the schedule? And my parents talked about ELO. One parent in particular, new to the district at semester, said it's been the ELO, kind of the home-based model that we've put in. It's been instrumental to her kids who have come from a very small school to get adapted and adjusted as freshmen at a bigger new school. So that to me was a very powerful comment, because that's what we're trying to do. We want to get our kids connected to a peer group, get them connected to our buildings, because that's how they will find success. So that to me was an indicator that we have some things going in the right direction. So I'm excited about what we have right now.
I would like to say a great big thank you to all of the time that has been put in, and all of the collaboration, not within your school, but with each other in your schools. It has been insurmountable amount of time, I know. And it just sounds to me like everything's adding up to a win-win-win situation for teachers, students, and parents and learning. And I know that was a big job for all of you, and I'm glad you wanted to do it and stuck with it. The district is benefiting from that, obviously. It's a wonderful thing.
We'd also just like to, this was not possible, the data was not possible without the NEA, without all of you willing to allow us to pilot it and to try it. And I will tell you, with our site council, we had the same kind of feedback. Student support groups that we brought in, our focus groups, talked about the benefits. And, when you gave us a chance to try it, then the next issue, we kind of looked at each other and said, well, now can it be done? So it can be, and we appreciate you being willing to take a risk on that. So thank you.
Well, you are the two to do it, to help lead that. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Well done.
Yeah.
Okay, next on our list is, on the discussion agenda is the middle school pilot schedule. And it's with Bonnie Welty and Dustin Dooley.
Okay, so last year at negotiations, we agreed that middle school was kind of the one area that really struggled getting extra plan time. So the high school's got their plan together, elementary figured something out, but middle school, well, we were in the middle, like we are. So we needed some time to process and try to figure out how to get some extra time in for our teachers. And so we agreed at negotiations that we would take this on. So Dustin and I and Shannon and Lynn, we spent time this fall doing a variety of things. We contacted the many colleagues that we have in the state and said, hey, can you send us your schedules? They sent us their schedules, and as you all know, every schedule was different and had different elements to it. So we collected that data, and then at our October 8th in-service, we proposed it together to our staffs and gave them the opportunity then to talk in their PLC groups, both South and Lakewood, because we both have different needs, and so that it allowed our teachers to talk about what each school needed. So anyways, we did that on the 8th. On the 15th, we sent a survey out to gauge responses, and we did our best to do it at the same time so that it wasn't my staff did it and then contacted, because they do talk a lot. But we had a very high percentage, 92%, approved the schedule, and the schedule that is attached, that we would have a 35-minute advisory, which allows us in the morning, so they do their ELO in the afternoon, we do advisory in the morning because it's a great check-in on kids. And it gives our kids that person again that allows them to meet with, if they had a fight with mom, they get to see a friendly face, get things done. And during advisory, that's time for character ed. We do circles, it's time to check on grades and get any help with homework that they might need or work miss. So looking at giving us the same schedule, because right now our schedules are not the same.
Our class periods are the same. We do our advisory at a different time than they do, which obviously goes with the way the schedule is. But the proposed daily schedule, what our current staff have is of that 8-period day, they have one period, second through 8th period, a 47-minute personal time. And with our push for professional learning communities and interdisciplinary teaming in the middle schools, we're not allowing them enough time to meet collaboratively, to talk about instruction, to talk about academics, to talk about student service. So what this proposed schedule does is it gives a core teacher reading, language arts, science, math, social studies, a 47-minute personal plan time during the day, as well as another 47-minute collaborative plan time, which will be twice a week with their interdisciplinary team and twice a week with their professional learning community, which is their department and grade level department. And once a week for different items that Mrs. Welty and I might have. For elective staff, they will have a 47-minute period plan throughout the day, every day of the week, and then their second plan, collaborative plan time, will be during the advisory first period. That's really about the only way we can do it without having to add a lot of staff to both of our buildings. So the only downfall with that is our advisories will be a little higher than they currently are, but it's still workable with the best solution. So they'll have a 35-minute collaborative plan where they will meet with their PLC 3 times a week. And by us going to the same schedule, we have some singletons in our building, like our facts, for example, or digital literacy. They can now communicate with each other back and forth
question. You said that the advisory is higher. How many kids are in an advisory?
It differs. Right now, I can't speak for Lake, but at South Middle School, we're at about 20 kids per advisory. That'll go up to about probably 24 to 26.
Thank you.
So one of the things too, going with this schedule, we've been granted the opportunity to hire 3 teachers between the 2 buildings. So we do have those positions posted to help us keep our numbers down, because our numbers will go up significantly going from teaching 6 hours to 5 to help offset class sizes. But staff does understand that their class sizes will go up, and they understand that that is part of that balancing act of getting time that they need to work with kids and work together at plan time to be successful.
And I think one thing to notice, prior to the 2017-18 school year, the proposed schedule was what the schedule was. Our course, at that time, there was more staff in both of our buildings, but all of our teachers had a personal plan.
Any more comments? Okay. I appreciate the pressure you were put under to work, since elementary and secondary seem to be in their niche and going along their way, and the conditions and the pressure that was on middle school to get that plan time for teachers, plus, again, a win-win-win situation where everybody could connect and collaboration was possible and student connection is possible, is also exemplary. I cannot tell you how, I know that you worked a lot on it and did a lot, and that's appreciated by the school board many times over. A job well done, and thank you so much. This has been an awfully long time coming. It was never there when some of us here were teachers, and this is a marked moment, I think, for what you have done, all of you principals, for the buildings and for the students. Thank you. Anyone else comment? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is school board reports and upcoming dates of importance. Saturday, March 16 is the Chamber Legislative Meeting at 8:30 a.m. Tuesday, April 9th is Salina Education Foundation Reception at 4:30, and that is on a board meeting day. We meet about 30 minutes earlier. Saturday, April 20th, Chamber Legislative Meeting, Chamber at 8:30 a.m. Carol, I'm going to start with you.
Well, that's a great thing, because I have no report. A meeting or two was canceled due to weather. So
Okay.
we'll see what happens this next week.
Okay. Emma?
I was able to attend the food service in-services yesterday, and I was highly impressed with all the things the employees have to do just to deliver the nutrition to our students and employees, and then to make sure it's accountable so that we get federal funds or state funds to pay for those meals. So it was really very, very interesting, and I'm highly impressed that they can have that many students go through the line in, 20 minutes, and all the accuracy that's there. So it was very educational. So thank you.
Thank you. Gabe?
Nothing to report.
Ann?
I attended Salina at the State House with Dr. Hardy and Jim, and to me it felt like a useful time where we educated them and they educated us, and so I was happy to get to do that. I attended negotiations training at Southeast of Saline. I think, Gabe, you were there too. Yes, on the 13th, and I did another songwriting workshop with 4th graders at Oakdale. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Jim?
Negotiations training at Southeast of Saline with KSB, Salina at the State House with Dr. Hardy and Ann, and Also, one of the things I got to do was parent-teacher conferences. And got to tell you, I was really impressed with how that went at South High, and the system with the career pathways and being able to match up the classes and things like that. It was really nice to be able to go through that individualized with my son and have discussion. So I think that's a huge part for our students moving.
Nedra and I were involved with the, going over the LIFT applications for the scholarships, forgivable loans for future teachers through the Education Foundation. That's always sort of an uplifting procedure to go through so many applications and resumes of really talented kids. And it ends up being really hard to select as many as we can interview and then select from there how many we can give scholarships to. But it's nice to see we have so many talented students, and it's also nice to see people from other avenues. Teachers don't necessarily come from 18-year-olds who graduate from high school and then go to college and come out when they're 22. They come. We can get people who are paras and others who are folks who also deserve selection into this kind of a program. So I did that, and that was great. And then I took some treats down to the Central High faculty during their parent-teacher conferences and had a lot of good camaraderie with those folks down there.
Thank you. I also went to negotiations training at Southeast of Saline, and where we had our training was in their boardroom, which was really interesting. We were comparing seats right away, whether our seats were better than their seats. I'm not sure that we came up with an answer because we didn't even go up and sit in them, so I have no idea. But that was a great training session, and I think that they do a good job. I also attended the Salina Education Foundation executive meeting as well as the trustee meeting, and we did talk about the list students, and that's one thing we always want to make sure, or the Salina Education Foundation wants to make sure that there's money there for that, and it's well used, and the students are becoming very successful with that program, and we have enough to hold 10 at 1 year. Now that doesn't mean that they're all together at the same year. You might have somebody receive it 4 years in a row or somebody only 2 years. Depends upon when they apply and if they qualify or not, but it's a wonderful program and we do want to keep that going. I also delivered cookies to Sunset at one of their faculty meetings and cookies to Schilling at one of their faculty meetings. It's getting to where I don't know very many people anymore out there, and I think when I went to Schilling, I knew at least 7 already, so I felt like I was sort of home. That was a great experience, so I will turn this over to you, Dr. Hardy.
Thank you, Madam President. One of the things I've noticed a lot of the meetings I'm going to and talking to legislators, early childhood is a prominent discussion, and kindergarten readiness is key. And I thought I'd share a few statistics with you that I picked up at these meetings. I thought this was really interesting. 40% of children, this is nationally, 40% of children are arriving at kindergarten 1 or 2 years behind a typical kindergartner. So 40% of students are not kindergarten ready. That's 1 or 2 years behind. 20% of students arrive at readiness, which I thought is interesting. And this other number floored me. 40% of students that are arriving at kindergarten are 1 or 2 years ahead. And that means we do have students that are going to some really quality preschool experiences. And of course, you know, parents coaching and helping and reading to them and all those things are really important. So 40% are 1 or 2 years behind, 20% are at readiness, and 40% are 1 or 2 years ahead of their peers. So I thought that was interesting, or what a kindergartner should be. The statistics for Kansas are that 45.3% of Kansas children ages 3 and 4 attend preschool. I thought that was extremely low.
What's the number? I'm sorry?
Yeah, 45.3% of Kansas kids are attending at 3 and 4 years old. That just seems so low when you think about how important kindergarten readiness is and having students have that important or quality preschool experience. Another thing I attended that I thought was very interesting, I went to the Fort Hays State University Superintendent Day, and they have regular meetings where the College of Education shares things that they're doing. And one of our recipients this evening for our Horizon Award winners, Michael, was a product of that. Here's some things that they shared. They were kind of proud of the fact that they have an increased number of teachers that they're producing. And I said, so what is your percent? They went up 1%. I thought, you're proud of that. And then they were comparing around the state, and we are hearing that this is the smallest class that anyone can remember of number of people that are coming out of college to be teachers. I thought that is significant. So, and they were talking about how they're down 300 or 400 teachers a year from before the recession. So the recession really had an impact on education because, you know, we reduced a lot in Kansas. And so that pendulum has gone one way, and it's just slowly coming back, but not very quickly. Another thing I thought was interesting was that Fort Hays State University will put out about 200 traditional track students. These are students that enter, you know, right out of high school. They go to Fort Hays, they enroll in teaching courses, and they become student teachers, then teachers. But they are producing 300 non-traditional track. So there are more non-traditional than traditional. And they said the average student teacher right now is aged 27 to 29. Thought that was very interesting. But one of the things that when we talked there, when I was listening to some of the schools that did not get to fill all their positions this last year, and we are able to, because we have, you know, we're a great place to be. We know it. We have a lot of good things with our schools, great programs for our teachers. Our reputation is really good, but it is getting tougher and tougher every year. So, but we are better shape than most is what I would say. Let's see, what else was I going to share with you? Last week we had a meeting, and Aaron led the meeting where we met with NEA Salina negotiations team to talk about the planning, all the efforts that we've done with our middle school and our high school and elementary. And I guess I want to point that out. That's a perfect example of, I think, why we do so well in this district and we collaborate well. The teachers organization had come to us early on that this was a concern. Our principals had shared early on this was a concern. So we were all on the same page, but somehow we had to make it happen. So over the course of a lot of collaboration, our principals working with their teachers, folks on the executive team stepping up, we took a problem and we came up with solutions, and it's to the benefit of our students and our staff. So I just think that's a wonderful example of how things are supposed to work, and that's why we have such a good working relationship in this district. So I think it's something to be very proud of. Let's see, I do also want to point out that last summer, you might remember Eric Brown came and talked to us about what's going on in Salina for employment and how we're doing some things with them. Of course, Eric has been announced as the new CEO for the Chamber of Commerce. We happen to think that's a good deal. He works really closely with the school district in a lot of different ways. One of the things I really appreciate that he's helping us with is our school to work force in our high schools, that we're identifying students that are going straight to the workforce. And with the hard work of our principals and working with the chamber, we want our students that are not ready to go to post-secondary for whatever reason, that when they leave our schools, we want them to go into living wage jobs. And working with Eric Brown and the Chamber of Commerce and our high school principals, I think we're getting set up to do that. So I think that's one of the reasons why we're really glad that Eric is in that position, because it benefits us as well, but also I think he's, when your Twitter handle is Mr. Salina, you know he's vested. And then the last thing, tomorrow morning, our Chamber of Commerce is our board meetings. So, Madam President, I will be attending that.
I will too.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you. We will move now to executive session, and in front of you, we are having an executive session for attorney-client privilege, and that would be the recommendation to read.
Do we have a time?
Why don't we start in at 6:05
How long do you think we need?
for 15 minutes.
Madam President,
Jim?
I move that the Board of Education go into executive session at 6:05 for 15 minutes for the purpose of consultation with board legal counsel to discuss the Schilling environmental litigation, which is privileged in the attorney-client relationship, which if discussed in open session would waive that privilege, and that the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 6:20 PM in the board conference room.
Is there a second? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. We will adjourn into executive session. If you want to stay, you can, and you can stay in this room if you'd like. Thank you for coming. If you're leaving.